In one of the most prestigious kingdoms of Greece, a boy was born, the son of the king with his young and beautiful queen. However, the birth of the heir to the royal house was not something auspicious at all. In his visit to Apollo's temple, the king was told a prophecy in which the birth of his son would be the cause of his death and the ruin of his entire family. The king, convinced that something had to be done, persuaded the queen that, for the good of all, the child's life would have to meet its end. The baby is delivered to a servant of the king, who would have to take the infant to Mount Cithaeron. The boy had his feet pierced and a rope passed through them. The boy had to be hung on a tree by his feet, allowing the beasts to do whatever they wanted with him. However, the servant could not leave the poor child in that place and handed him to an unknown shepherd who was passing by with his cattle. The shepherd untied the child's feet and treated his wounds. He baptized the baby as Oedipus, which meant the one with swollen feet. The shepherd, in turn, was extremely poor, and since he did not have conditions to raise the child, decided he took him to the king of Corinth. Polybius and his wife had no children, and therefore decided to adopt Oedipus as their own son. Oedipus grew, and he was beautiful, strong, and deeply astute, and he lived happily as the crown prince of Corinth. However, during a celebration, one of the noblemen insulted Oedipus, saying that he was not worthy to be the heir to the throne of Corinth, since he was a foreigner. Oedipus questioned King Polybius, wanting to know the truth, but the latter told him not to mind the words of a drunkard. Oedipus, unhappy with the king's response, decided to find the truth in the oracle of Delphi. Despite the insistence, the oracle refused to answer his questions, but prophesied a terrible future for the young boy. You shall kill your own father, marry your mother, and leave a shameful descent. Oedipus was dismayed by such a dreadful prophecy and decided to leave Corinth to avoid killing his beloved father and taking his mother as a wife. The young man, disheartened, wandered through the roads of Greece until, at a crossroads, he met a gentleman in a wagon, accompanied by his servants. The road was narrow, and one of the servants threw Oedipus off the road to allow the passage of his lord's cart. The young prince, outraged, hit the servant with his cane. The lord and his servants grabbed their weapons and advanced against Oedipus. Oedipus was surrounded by aggressors, but his strength, agility, and youth allowed the youngster to defeat all his opponents. The lord and his servants were dead. Only one of the servants managed to escape. Oedipus, victorious, felt a strong sense of power after winning a battle against several opponents. The Prince of Corinth continued to wander through Greece when he was faced with the news that a terrible monster was terrorizing the region of the kingdom of Thebes. Oedipus, feeling empowered after his recent victory, went to Thebes to confront the fearsome Sphinx and add his name to the pantheon of heroes. Oedipus, Prince of Corinth, had abandoned his kingdom after hearing from the oracle of Delphi the prophecy in which he would be responsible for the death of his father, while also marrying his mother. In the name of the love for his parents, he left Corinth and began to wander aimlessly through Greece. In his wanderings, Oedipus heard rumors that a monster was devastating the city of Thebes. The creature was known by the name of Sphinx. It was a winged monster, a mixture of a woman with a lion. The vile creature stood on a rock near the city entrance, and all those who approached her heard the following sentence uttered by the Sphinx: "Decipher me, or I'll devour you." And immediately after that, the creature presented a riddle to those who dared to approach her. All those who tried to decipher the enigma failed and were devoured. Creon provisionally reigned over Thebes, which was mourning the death of King Laius. After losing his firstborn to the Sphinx, Creon decreed that he would grant the hand of his sister Jocasta in marriage, queen, and the widow of Laius, to the one capable of defeating the Sphinx, and this hero would become king of Thebes. Oedipus decided to accept this challenge because he did not fear death, And if he ended up dying, at least he would know that his parents would be safe from his terrible prophecy. Oedipus met the Sphinx and heard the well-known sentence, "Decipher me, or I'll devour you. In the morning, I have 4 legs, at noon, 2, and when the twilight comes, I have 3. Among all creatures, it is the only that can change its number of legs, but the greater the number, the lower its speed and strength." Oedipus stared at the Sphinx, which was already licking her lips, waiting for yet another meal. And so the boy uttered his reply. The answer is the human being. At the dawn of his life, he crawls on his arms and legs. In the middle of his life, he walks on his 2 legs. At the end of his life, he has to rely on a cane. The enigma's resolution covered the Sphinx with an unbearable shame, and she ended up throwing herself from the top of a cliff. The Sphinx was dead, and Thebes was safe again. Creon, as promised, gave the hand of his sister Jocasta to the hero, and he married her. Oedipus was now the king of Thebes. His wife, despite having a certain age, was still very beautiful and fertile. And with her, Oedipus had several children, and they lived very happily. But black clouds began to cover the city of Thebes, a premonition that something terrible was about to happen. After defeating the terrible Sphinx, Oedipus, as a reward, received the hand of the queen Jocasta of Thebes in marriage and became king of Thebes. He had 4 children with the queen, the boys Oedipus and Polynices, and the girls Antigone and Ismene. Many years passed, and Oedipus, despite having some flaws, was seen as a righteous and benevolent king. However, a plague was ravaging the city of Thebes, and many lives were cut short by the disease.
Desperate, the population reached for their king, who had already saved the city in the past, and begged Oedipus to save it again. King Oedipus did not dodge his responsibility with the city and ordered Creon, his friend and brother-in-law, to go to the Oracle of Delphi and find out the source of such misfortune. Creon returns from the oracle with the answers for such calamity. "I will reveal what I was told by Apollo. Through the glorious oracle of Delphi, he expressly ordered that we must purify the land of the sacred city of Thebes, which is tarnished thanks to a vile criminal." The oracle revealed that the plague would persist until the one responsible for the death of Laius, the former king of Thebes, was expelled from the glorious city of Thebes, which he used as a haven. The only thing known was that King Laius had been murdered by a gang of thieves at a crossroads, but their identities remained unknown. Oedipus assumed the responsibility to uncover the identity of such vile element who lurked within the walls of Thebes, and said, "Anyone who knows the real identity of the murderer is obliged to report what they know to me. Do not fear any kind of retaliation, regardless of who the perpetrator is, since you will be duly rewarded. I want the murderer to know that if he decides to willingly surrender himself, his physical integrity will be preserved and he will not suffer any sentence except the exile required by the oracle. And I want everyone to know that I will not rest until the man responsible for Laius's death is found and expelled from the city, even if he is part of my court or family. And I pray that the gods punish such an individual, inflicting him with full-fledged pain and suffering." Creon suggested the presence of Tiresias. The old blind man was a notorious clairvoyant, and with the help of his powers, the criminal could be found. The old Tiresias appeared before Oedipus, who told him, "Wise elder, your reputation as a clairvoyant gives you enough credit to help us discover the identity of the actual murderer of my predecessor. Therefore, I command you to reveal everything you know. Terrible is the knowledge that only brings misery to those who know it. Let me go, my king, and bear your own burden, and let me bear mine. It would be better for both of us. If you have knowledge of the killer's identity, reveal it now. do not allow the city of Thebes to continue to suffer due to your omission. You don't know what you are asking for. Such knowledge will only cast misery, and my mouth knows nothing. How dare you betray the soil that welcomed you? This traitor can only be complicit in such a crime." Tiresias was deeply offended by this accusation and decided to reveal what he knew. "You insisted on going after your own demise. May you learn that the wicked who profanes our city is you, King of Thebes. Take this man out of my sight. He is an old, demented man. You wanted the truth and forced me to say it. Now force yourself to endure the punishments due and welcome the fruits of the curse that you have summoned, because I know the powerful truth, and what is said is said."
Take this traitor away. He can only be in collusion with Prince Creon, who brought this man here to steal my crown. Oedipus accused Creon of treason and conspiracy alongside Tiresias in attempt to strip him of his power. "Why do you impose such burdensome accusations on me in such a careless way? I have always been your friend and made you king. I don't wish to have your crown, and why would I want to anyway? Standing by your side, I have all the benefits of royalty, without having to assume the heavy burdens of being a king. I never had the ambition to take your crown for myself." Queen Jocasta, who was watching everything, tried to calm the tempers of her husband and brother. However, Creon walked away, furious with Oedipus's accusations. "Husband of mine, don't mind what that old charlatan told you. Those soothsayers and oracles no longer have the power that they once did. It was prophesied that Laius would be killed by his own son, and he died when he was just a baby." At that point, the arrival of a messenger from Corinth was announced, from the city where Oedipus's parents still reigned. "My lord, I bring sad news from Corinth. Your old father has died, and for this reason you should return to your beloved city and take your throne as the king's heir." "The news that you give me is sad indeed, but even so, it gives me great relief. The oracle predicted that I would kill my own father and that I would marry my mother. You see, Oedipus, the oracle's word is no longer valuable. The old king of Corinth died without your intervention." "But what if my old father died due to the sadness and despair he felt after I decided to abandon him? It's not prudent to return to Corinth and run the risk of ending up married to my mother." "Don't worry, my king. The queen is not your real mother. She simply adopted you." "How do you know such a secret?" "Because I was the one who handed you to her when you were just a baby. You were handed to me when I was crossing these lands with my flock. You had your feet pierced." After hearing what the messenger had said, Jocasta felt a deep tightness in her heart. "Would you recognize the man who handed me if you ever saw him again?" "Forget that, Oedipus. Stirring such wounds would only cause more pain. It's important to me to know the identity of my father and my mother, because I do not want to bring them the misfortune of my prophecy. Do not insist on going down that path. I beg you. Like I have to discover the identity of Laius's true murderer, it's my duty to discover the identity of my parents. This is my duty to Thebes and to myself." "Don't you dare, sorrowful one. If you insist, that will be the only title you will carry for the rest of your life." Jocasta, desolated, crumbled into tears and ran to her room. Oedipus failed to understand the reason of such hysterical reaction from his wife, and believed that Jocasta probably feared the humble origin of his parents, something that could spoil the name of her family. While Oedipus was talking with the messenger, he is informed that the only witness of Laius's murder was brought to the court. The servant of the former king looked pale in front of Oedipus. The messenger told him, "Lord, I have no doubt this is the man who handed you to me when you were just a baby. Servant, this man says that you handed him a baby many years ago." Lord, pay no attention to this man. He is just losing your time. Do you remember that small boy with wounded feet? Now he is in front of you as a king. Why don't you shut your mouth, you fool? Who handed you the child? Was it your father? I don't know what this man is talking about. If I have to repeat the question, you will be a dead man. Please, do not harm an old man. I cursed that day when I spared your life. It would be better if you were dead. Speak right away and end this story. I beg you, my king, don't ask me anything else. You will speak the truth, whether you want it or not. Tie him to that trunk. Considering that threat, I bow before your willingness. Saying this will be really cruel, but your pain as a listener will be even more excruciating. You have been delivered to me by Queen Jocasta, who put in my arms her son with King Laius, so that he could be delivered to the beasts of Mount Cithaeron to prevent the fulfillment of a terrible prophecy. During that moment of revelation, light shed on the whole darkness that had blinded the poor Oedipus. His prophecy had been fulfilled. While trying to escape his fate from Corinth, Oedipus, in fact, crossed paths with it. But Oedipus's full misery had yet to be reached. Queen Jocasta had just committed a desperate act. Oedipus ran toward the royal rooms, but the door was locked. Jocasta, don't do anything that cannot be undone. We are not to blame for what happened. Everything was an inevitability of fate. After forcing the door, Oedipus found Jocasta hanging with a rope around her neck. Oedipus laid the body of the lifeless queen on the floor. He removed the golden brooches that tied her dress, and with their needles, pierced his own eyes. Cursed be my eyes, which have witnessed such a dreadful scene. I therefore mutilate them so that I no longer have to face my parents in the kingdom of Hades. Blind, Oedipus addressed the population of Thebes and said, I have plucked out my own eyes. What can I admire or love in this life now? Take me to exile, far from Thebes, because I'm damned, the most hated creature by the gods among mortals. Oedipus handed his crown to his brother-in-law Creon, who would take care of the kingdom until his children reached the age to reign. Oedipus was given to the cane of the neglected, and the wretched king was taken by his own children to the city gates. His beloved daughter, Antigone, stretched out her arm and decided to accompany her poor father in exile. For Oedipus, the presence of his daughter at his side could only mean that the gods finally felt sorry for a man so cruelly persecuted since the beginning of his life.